I've always tried to talk truth to power, and it makes me very unpopular in a lot of circles in Washington, especially with folks I still work for. I'm still an Army reservist, at least till the current investigation is done. If they decide to nail me on something, I'm sure they will. But I turned 30 years in service this month. Believe it or not, I've turned 30 years. Thank you. I think it's probably older than some of you in this room. And I feel privileged to have served this country for 30 years. What I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about Able Danger. I'm going to start off with talking about the book, because the book kind of is a nexus between Able Danger and something called Operation Dark Heart, which obviously the Pentagon was not happy only talking about any more than Able Danger. So we'll go through that, and then lastly, after I talk about the book, talk about kind of what I see happening in the future. Some of the things I'm going to say tonight may not sit well with some of you. Let me say right up front, I'm not a truther. Not to say that I don't believe that there are issues that need to be investigated. I do. My focus has been, and will continue to be, on the conspiracies I know for a fact exist. Now, I've been very consistent since I first went public. When my cover was blown, because I was a career case officer, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's essentially a class of intelligence officers who essentially go into a program where you're never directly affiliated with the U.S. government as an intelligence officer. And I did that for about 25 years total. And my interest was essentially the truth, to find the truth. Since I was a kid, as far back as I remember, I've always had a desire to know what is really going on. So that is what drove me to be what I am today. And for better or for worse, that's what's put me here in front of you. So one of the things I wanted to do with Operation Dark Heart was tell the story of a very uncomfortable period of time for our government. And that is the tipping point in Afghanistan. I've come out, I'm a conservative, I've come out against the war. If you read the last chapter of my book, The Path to Victory, well, the path to victory ain't in Afghanistan. It's time to leave. If I were President Obama, I'd start the withdrawal tomorrow. Because if we stay another year there, or 2 more years there, the end result will not be different. And yet, we're spending billions of dollars in this war. And I don't believe the fundamental interest of this country will be served. That interest is stabilization of the region, to make sure that bad people can't do bad things to us here. As brutal as that is really should be our focus, not nation building, not trying to put the Afghan people into the 21st century. Did they vote for that? I don't think they did. So, Operation Dark Heart itself is a book focused on 3 issues. First, I wanted people to understand what it was like to be in my boots. So we wrote it like a novel. It is not a novel. It's based on as much fact as we could get into it. As you all know, it's been redacted, so, some things were pulled out. But I wanted people to understand what it was like to be in certain parts of Afghanistan interrogating someone who you think may be a terrorist, who may be planning things, or his cohorts planning things back here. That happened. That's in the book. What it's like to go into a general who, by the virtue of his rank, thinks he's smarter than everybody in the country. And he had no background in it, but he thought he was smart. And what it's like to say, to use the facts, and some of you I'm sure have suffered from this, to use the facts to defend your position and no one listened to you. So that is a key element of the book, of what it's like to be there. And I like to believe I captured a good sense of the feel. So I think you will all get a sense of what it was like to go through that whole cacophony of events. The second issue within the book of what I wanted to bring out relates directly to how the war is being fought and where things went off the rails. Again, as a first-hand witness of this, I lay out essentially the decisions that were made, which, to use a President Obama term, to put the war into the ditch. We were winning for a while, and one of the reasons we were winning is because we only had 10,500 troops on the ground, because we weren't able to do much more than focus on terrorist organizations. Dark Heart is the story of the fact that when we figured out that Al-Qaeda has pretty much left Afghanistan, it's time to leave and go focus on where they're at. And that was not Afghanistan. And most people you talk to today, most intelligence officers say, well, there may be a handful of Al-Qaeda, they're all in Pakistan. Pakistan's the issue, for better or for worse. And the last issue is obviously Able Danger. While I was at Bagram undercover in October of 2003, and again, this is critical, 2003, Dr. Philip Zelikow, the chairman of the 9/11 Commission, shows up. And he says, not to me directly, but through the chain of command, if anyone has pre-9/11 intelligence information, we'd like to hear about it, because we're doing this in-depth investigation called the 9/11 Report. So, me being a good American, thinking maybe I could offer something, didn't know. I figured they'd probably already heard of it. I offered to come forward. So, one of the things I wanted to do in this book is paint the picture of that meeting. I devoted an entire chapter to everything that happened in that room. And within the context of that meeting, I lay out Able Danger. Now, Able Danger, you're all gonna find this grandly ironic. I've testified to Able Danger twice. I've been in 3 hearings, testified in 2 of them. And yet, to this day, I've never been permitted to talk about the last 10% of what Able Danger was about, because that's still too top secret to talk about, believe it or not. During closed hearings, I'm skipping ahead here to 2006. During closed hearings in 2006, in front of the House Armed Services Committee, at the top secret level, as I was starting to talk about that last 10%, I was told to stop. People in this room are not cleared to hear about that. So it's like, okay, I had to stop. So to this day, even though I've offered to go testify, no one wants to hear about it. You got to ask yourself why. Why would they not want to hear the rest of the story? I don't know. And I don't think it's in our interests as a country to not talk about everything, to get a clear understanding of what went wrong at 9/11. So this brings me back to my original opening point. I'm not a truther, but there is common ground between what a lot of you as 9/11 truthers feel, desire, want, and what I want, which is resolution. Some people feel that 9/11 was a crime, probably one of the largest unsolved crimes in history. I tend to agree with that. But I also believe it was a terrorist act. I think they can both be equally true. Some of you don't believe in Al-Qaeda. I do. Some of you believe the government could have done this. I don't. So, and this is one of the things my lawyer, Mark Zay, God bless him, he's a great guy, always tells me, and I've lived by this, never attribute to conspiracy what incompetence will surely explain. I have seen incompetence that would drive you all mad. We're talking about $150,000 a year bureaucrats who have gotten up and left meetings that I'm trying to brief them because they don't want to hear this, or I don't want to hear this. I'll be responsible if I hear it. True, happened. So what are you paying for? I'm serious. I mean, what are we all paying for? Where's our taxpayer money going? Aren't we owed? Aren't we owed better? We are. So this brings us to the point about Enron. Enron was a very bad time for the financial and government business community. A lot of bad people conspired to make a lot of money. And they were held accountable. Most of them went to jail. A couple of them died from the stress. Ken Lay, I believe, died from a heart attack before he could be put in prison.
Or fainted.
But no matter how you paint it, why don't we have this level of accountability in government? Do we all believe that people of that level of evil, and I'll use that word, evil, do we really believe that those people of that level of evil at Enron don't exist in the government? Is the government immune from having bad people show up and do things? No. So this is why I agree, and I believe there's common ground for everyone to talk to the fact that we need to have better accountability. Some of you also know we've sued the Pentagon over the First Amendment violations of my book. They violated my First Amendment rights. They did. And so we're suing the Pentagon. It should be tried, I think, probably March, April of this year. With that said, thank you. The reason we're suing them is because we feel very strongly that the content of the book is not classified. I had a researcher go through and find everything in the book in open sources. Somewhere out there, it's already there. The reason that they're uncomfortable with it is, and I was actually told this by the Pentagon, it's like, well, yeah, it may already be out there, but you speak with more authority than others. Like, what? I was actually told that, it's like, by a general. It's like, really? I really don't know how my word carries more weight than, say, WikiLeaks, since those are the actual cables, but somehow they think that, I carry more weight. Now, I'm going to juxtapose that to the Able Danger issue. The Able Danger issue resulted in an IG report, Inspector General report from the DoD. And in this Inspector General report, generated in September of 2006, it says that Shaffer doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He was just a messenger boy. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have it in one report saying, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just a reservist. And then on the 5 years later, somehow my words have taken on greater significance. That's part of the problem. They want it both ways. When they want you to not be credible, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He was a reservist. But when you talk about something and you got facts to back it up, oh no, no, we can't talk about this. Your taxpayer dollars at work. I would estimate that over the past 6 years, probably close to $2 million, and that may be chump change to you all, but not to me, $2 million is spent on investigations regarding little old me. Now, I would love to have $2 million. I think they could have just given it to me and I would have left the country to go live in Argentina or something. But my goodness, think about that. Over what?
The truth.
The truth. There's about a full chapter on Able Danger in a book. We're hoping to get the unredacted version out by October, the paperback. But in this, as I mentioned earlier, I talk about my meeting with Dr. Philip Zelikow. In this meeting, after briefing him on Able Danger, to include mentioning a certain name which they don't like talking about on the 9/11 Commission, Mohammed Atta, I mentioned the fact that we discovered 2 of the 3 cells which conducted 9/11 attacks to include the cell which contained Mohammed Atta. And so the result of that meeting at Bagram in October of 2003 was Dr. Zelikow to come up to me at the end of the meeting and give me his card. I still have it. As a matter of fact, this became an issue at the testimony in 2006 because he was trying to deny he'd ever met me until I produced the card. And he said, what you said today is very important. You need to come talk to me in Washington after you return from your tour here in Afghanistan. And I explained to him a couple details, like, I'm really not this person, I'm someone else. But I will call you when I return, and I'll talk to your staff. And oh, by the way, I have a full set of Able Danger documents. You may want to look at them. Well, unbeknownst to me, the moment I left that meeting, my fate was sealed, and I didn't even know it. This is where my life, and there's a Playboy article out I encourage you to get in the January issue of Playboy, if you haven't already seen it, called The Private War of Anthony Shaffer, done by investigative journalist Peter Lance. Did a couple of books, 1,000 Years to Revenge and Triple Cross. Great book. Long. I've told Peter I can never. It's a very long book. I've never gotten through it, but it's a good read. It's very factual. Anyway, Peter Lance did this story on this whole thing. So there's things in that article I can't tell you about because technically the Pentagon has said they're still classified. But Peter can report about it because he found them in the open press. That's really strange, but true.
This is the first time I've actually ever heard of you, but
Okay.
I was listening to you talking. Just let me get one thing straight. After 30 years of service, the only thing they could get you on was $200 in cell phone fees and asking for a ribbon?
Yeah, that's it.
Good man.